Good morning. Today we'll discuss Aristotle's theory of imitation. First point is that imitation is an act of imaginative creation. Aristotle did not invent the term imitation. Plato was the first to use the word in connection with poetry, but Aristotle breathes into it a new and definite meaning so that poetic imitation no longer remains mere mimicry, a mere act of servile copying, but becomes an act of imaginative creation by which the poet, drawing his material from the phenomenal world, makes something new out of it. Then Aristotle says that imitation unites poetry and other fine arts. In Aristotle's view, it is the principle of imitation which unites poetry with the other fine arts. Imitation is the common basis of all fine arts, and it is this fact of imitation which differentiates the fine arts from the other category of arts, that is, the useful arts. While Plato has equated poetry with painting, Aristotle equates it with music. It no longer remains a mere servile representation of the surface or the appearance of things, but in his theory it becomes a representation of the passions and emotions of men, which are also imitated by music. Therefore, Aristotle, by his theory, enlarged the scope of imitation. As Butcher has pointed out, that human actions are prompted by passions, forces at work within, and to imitate men in action is also an imitation of these determining factors. Hence, the poet imitates not the surface of things but the higher reality embedded within. As these are also the objects of imitation of music, poetry has also close affinities with music. Next is the medium of imitation. In the very first chapter of the Poetics, Aristotle says that epic poetry and tragedy, comedy also, and dithyrambic poetry, as also the music of the flute and the lyre, in most of their forms, are in their general conception modes of imitation. They differ, however, from one another in three respects: their medium, objects, and the manner or mode of imitation, being in each case distinct. Thus, the medium of the poet and the painter are different. The one imitates through form and color, and the other through language, rhythm, and harmony. The musician imitates through rhythm and harmony. In this way, poetry is nearer to music than painting. Therefore, the manner of a poet may be purely narrative, as in the epic, or representation through action, as in drama. Thus, different kinds of poetry differ from each other in their manner of imitation. Even dramatic poetry is differentiated into tragedy and comedy accordingly as it imitates men as better or worse. The next point is the objects of imitation. The objects of imitation, Aristotle says that the objects of poetic imitation are men in action. He emphasizes on men in action. The poet may imitate men as they were or are, or as they ought to be. In other words, we can say that he may represent men either as better than in real life, or as worse, or as they are. This means that according to Aristotle's theory, imitation is not a mere photographic representation of the surface of things, but it is a creative process. The poet selects and orders his material and in this way recreates reality. He brings order out of chaos. The purely irrational or accidental is eliminated and attention is focused on the permanent and the significant. The poet has a choice that he can represent men better than in real life. That is the idea of them, which might be based on material supplied by history and legend rather than by any living figure. He gives us a truth of an ideal or universal kind. He tells us not what men are, but what they can be or what they ought to be. His mind is not tied to reality. He says that it is not the function of the poet to relate what has happened, but what may happen according to the laws of probability or necessity. Poetry tends to express the universal, history the particular. In this way, he demonstrates the superiority of poetry over history. The poet has freed us from the tyranny of facts, takes a larger or generalized view of things, and represents the universal in and through the particular, and so shares the philosopher's quest for ultimate truth. There is a universal element in great poetry and hence its permanent appeal. Therefore, he equates poetry with philosophy and shows that both are means to a higher truth. Both contribute to a better understanding of man and his life. But the word universal, as Aristotle has clarified, how a person of a certain nature or type will be on a particular occasion, speak or act according to the law of probability or necessity. Thus, the poet constantly rises from the particular to the general. He studies the particular and on the basis of his study devises principles of general application. The poet transcends the limits of real life without violating the essential laws of human nature. Thank you. We'll discuss the later part of this theory of imitation in the next lecture.